for joining us tonight. We appreciate it tremendously.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Just good evening to everyone. I definitely appreciate the opportunity, any chance I get to come out and speak to the public, well, or virtually, until we get past this pandemic. So I appreciate the opportunity. Just a little bit about myself. I'm sure everybody has read within the different biographies been published since I started last July. I've been in the fire department approximately 39 years, close to 40 years. I started in Prince George's County. I was a volunteer at Sea Pleasant Fire Company. Ended up being hired by Prince George's and worked my whole career, held every rank up through Deputy Chief of Operations, where I was in charge of, at the time it was 47 stations, approximately 1,900 personnel, career and volunteer. Our budget at the time was approximately $20 million. And I know the year and a half, 2 years I was the operations deputy, we were the 10th, 1 year we were the 10th busiest fire department in the country, but also one of the leading combination career volunteer fire companies in the nation. We were well respected, I believe, in that realm. I retired from Prince George's and went to York, Pennsylvania. I was intrigued by a project, an opportunity to become fire chief of the first regional combination fire service in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And that was basically building a combination system from existing municipalities. I had 3 municipalities that surrounded York City. We ended up eventually bringing in a couple of the smaller boroughs. I worked there 9 years. It took 9 years to bring that department together. We started from scratch, pretty much developing our own pension plans, health benefit packages, workers' comp plans. We just did everything from the ground up with the assistance of the townships. Very successful. I retired after that project. After 9 years, I felt I had done everything I could do and decided to move on. My wife and I moved to Florida for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden the kids started having grandbabies. So there was the need to come back. So I live in Tawnytown. I live in Carroll Vista, right off in a Carroll Vista senior community. I live 10 houses down from my parents, so I get to keep an eye on them and assist them on a daily basis. But I went to work for 911. I can't stay retired for long. Was not aware that Carroll County had never established a fire director, fire chief's position. When the opportunity came, I applied. So I was very fortunate to be selected. This is very similar to what I did in Pennsylvania as far as starting a new combination department. A department currently or previously had pretty much been comprised of 14 independent volunteer fire stations that operated under a management umbrella, which was known as the Carroll County Volunteer Emergency Services Association, still is. And they received funds from the county government. So with the creation of the new department, the legal authority, the responsibility for fire EMS services in Carroll County fell under the county government, with the adoption of Chapter 37 of the county code, establishing the county fire EMS as well as the director's position. I've been working since July with an original goal. Obviously, the goal is going to move a little bit due to COVID, but the original goal was to mirror the existing services that the volunteers provide. This is a volunteer fire EMS system currently. And then we as a county provide funding to each station to be able to hire drivers as well as EMTs and paramedics for each station. What we're planning on now is to be able to supplement the volunteer system. They need assistance. The funding that is and the cost of the fire EMS service is such to where they are now dipping into their fundraising activities. They need assistance, and I applaud them for coming forward and requesting that. So we are building the department now with the plans of hiring personnel over the next several fiscal years. It was my hope to have all stations covered within two and a half fiscal years based on the financial climate, plus all the other requirements of county government and with the legislation coming out of Annapolis and other requirements. We're looking more at a 5-year plan. We're going to hire 44 personnel this year. Part of the reasoning for wanting the county intervention was and I spoke with most of the volunteer stations, if not all. One of their biggest concerns is they wanted out of the employment business. They wanted to transfer all that over to the county, plus the assistance that was going to be needed with their funding. So what we've done is we approached it from the standpoint that as a county government, I wanted to be able to mirror the service currently provided, meaning that if Station X provided a driver and 2 paramedics and 2 EMTs per day, I wanted to at least start off with the same amount of service provision from county employees. So what would happen is the funding for that station, the funding that the volunteers use to pay their employees would then transition back to the county. And we would place county personnel in the stations for them to utilize as needed. Whatever call was needed, that's where the career personnel could supplement the volunteers. With 44 personnel being hired the first year, the decision was made to start with the busiest stations, which is the Westminster station and then the Sykesville station. Between those 2 stations, they provide 50% of the call volume, call volume coverage. It also produced the largest amount of EMS revenue. The volunteers currently assist paying their employees through billing for EMS services. When we move into a station with the career personnel, it's our goal to purchase their ambulances so they no longer have to worry about fundraising for ambulances. And then we would bill for the service to help the county pay for the revenue gap or the salary gap that we anticipate between what the county is going to have to pay and what the stations pay. So at the end of FY22, with us providing personnel to Westminster and Sykesville, that will complete the 2 busiest stations, and they will be completely out of the employment responsibility. Then the county we're hoping for approval of an additional 40 in FY22 or FY23. And then the next 3 fiscal years, there would be 36 each year. So over a period of 5 years, we would be able to staff all 13 stations. There is a 14th with Harney, but right now they have no career employees, and it's a home response station. So we wouldn't be able to have someone assigned there. This is a very emotional subject. I've been given weekly updates to the commissioners. This has changed, and I went through it in York when I did that project up there. Change is very difficult for some. I think we all recognize the volunteers. Once again, I applaud for recognizing the need for help. We recognize the need for personnel as well, but we also, as a county government, have to address. We're addressing current legislation that affects school funding, body cams for the sheriffs, the employee needs to comply with that legislation, and all the other requests of different directors throughout the county. So we're not going to be able to fix in 1 year what has been a trend. It is a volunteerism. The decline in volunteerism is a trend seen nationally. Carroll County has been able to prolong the need for county intervention for many years. But I went through this in Prince George's County 40 years ago. So it's a natural evolution. It's harder for volunteers. They're working multiple jobs. The training requirements alone for career firefighters is difficult enough. And for someone who's trying to perform public service on their free time and be able to take the training, it's difficult. So this is not a county takeover of the fire service. We are slowly moving in. My goal is to supplement the staffing of the volunteers, to provide them breaks, to assist with service delivery. But my key role is to build the framework for a county system for 20, 30, even 50 years down the road, to where the county, as the availability of volunteers do change, that we're gradually able to expand the career service with the ultimate goal of fire and EMS service provision to the public. Safety is our biggest concern. So, like, as I said, this won't happen overnight. There's a lot of great discussion going on. There's a lot of that discussion involves items that the fire service in Carroll County have never had to address, and that's career and volunteer operating in the same station, maybe a county employee driving a volunteer-owned fire truck, or a volunteer driving a career county-owned vehicle. And that all boils down to liability. So we've had a lot of discussions with our risk management leaders, with our attorneys, also with our insurance carriers. So it's brought along a great deal of discussion, which is going to cause our goal for July probably to move back into the fall, to be able to address all the concerns of all the stations. What we want to guarantee everybody is that until a station has personnel assigned, they will still receive county funding for the station employees that they provide, so that the services will not be interrupted. And the stations that may not have career personnel assigned until the third, fourth, or fifth year, they will also continue to receive their funding until the time that they come up onto the schedule. So there's a lot of moving parts in this. Like I said, every time we have discussions with between the volunteers and the career, something comes up that we really need to investigate and maybe get a legal opinion, or actually consider how that will affect our plans. So it's a fluid process. We're making a lot of adjustments. But we've also had, quite a bit of emotions involved. And like I said, that's just the natural reaction to change. A lot of our part-time employees, a lot of our volunteers are career firefighters in other jurisdictions. So they have an understanding of what the future holds for the Carroll County Fire EMS department. But there are quite a few people that have not experienced the fire service outside of the county. So for them, this is a learning experience. And for me, being an outsider, I'm able to come in and give an unbiased approach to the county, do a comprehensive audit, provide recommendations. So it's a learning experience for me as well. So hopefully over time, we will work out all the bugs on this, but the ultimate goal is to provide the best fire and EMS service in the state. And I think we'll get there. We have some great people. I know, I guess your area covers the Reese and Gamber fire stations. And I know you're serviced by Sykesville and a lot of the surrounding. We have outstanding personnel in this county, volunteer and career. I get the relationships I have with the volunteer chiefs have been fantastic. The cooperation I've been receiving. But like I said, this will impact a lot of people. There are people that have part-time jobs in the fire department that obviously, if the county starts assigning personnel, that opportunity may not exist in a few years. So that's where the emotional part come into play. That's where the maybe the additional revenue that's required of an existing part-time employee is involved. So we're going to make progress. But we're going to try to provide the best service we can. But we're hoping that you don't notice a change in service for the worse while we're in this transition process. Ryan, I meet with Ryan. Ryan is a full-time employee at Mount Airy. The employee portion, the people that hope to be employed in the county, they have their association set up. So I get to speak to the volunteers. I get to speak to the potential employees. I get to speak to the part-timers that have no intention of applying for the county, but they are providing the service. So I have the opportunity to gather a lot of information from them. So this is definitely a learning process. I tell everybody it took 9 years, even for just three small municipalities in York County, for me to be comfortable to retire. This is not going to change overnight. So we have to live within our financial ability. Unfortunately, COVID has dampened a lot of our opportunities as far as our timeline, but we're going to keep reaching for that goal. And if we have to slide to the right a little bit on the schedule, we'll get it done, and we'll get it done the right way. And that's my goal too, is to make sure we do it right the first time. So I hope I've answered a lot of your questions, or at least given you a good snapshot of what I've been doing, since July, and what our plans are. And I'm welcome to entertain any questions you have.
No, that's a very good overview, and I appreciate that tremendously. Just to try to understand exactly what the county has in mind and what your role actually is, and it's certainly a daunting task. You're trying to balance an awful lot of things and move forward at the same time, and that's a huge challenge. With volunteerism, I guess it's declining. Volunteerism all over seems to be declining, and it seems to be a factor with regard to the fire services, fire EMS services as well. The charge to try to get more volunteers, is that still in play, to try to solicit new volunteers at this point in time, or would that be counter to what the overall objective is that you're trying to achieve?
No, my goal, like I said, is to address long-term development of the department. And as we develop, hopefully we'll address a lot of the short-term needs in that process. But as we continue to build the framework for a combination county fire department, we still want to recruit and try to retain volunteers. The issue with volunteerism with firefighters, like I said, the amount of training required, it used to be a lot of people worked within the towns they served. Now you have people that might drive 60 miles to go to their place of employment. You may have some businesses now that will not allow a current volunteer to leave their place of employment to serve. So there's just a chain of difficulties that have caused that decline over years. The amount of, when I grew up, your mom stayed home and took care, and your dad worked, you have 2, 3, 4 incomes now that are required of a lot of people. So just the time involvement is difficult, but we continue to try to retain. We are running an emergency services training program, what I used to call a high school cadet program in Prince George's County, where juniors and seniors that become volunteers in the county, they would report to our training academy for school credit. And when they left, they would be fully trained firefighters and EMTs. And then we want to work towards giving them preference to hiring as they get older and meet the eligibility to retire, to seek employment with us. So we are consistently trying to bring in new volunteers. We try to promote as much as we can the volunteer fundraising activities. One of the things, like I said, with the EMS, a lot of our employees are probably going to take a bulk of the calls, which are EMS calls. That's 80% of the workload. So right now, that is what the station employees mostly perform. And that's what a lot of the county employees will perform. Excuse me. And one of the reasons when I talked about the wage gap that we anticipate, different stations, they pay different salaries based on what they can afford. But as a county government, to be competitive with surrounding jurisdictions and to draw employees to the county, we're going to have to offer a better pay scale than what some of the stations can provide. So there is going to be a wage gap versus what we give the volunteers now versus what we're going to pay, plus the benefit packages. So one of the suggestions is as we remove the volunteers from the responsibility of being employers, we purchase their ambulances. That allows the county to take over the EMS billing to help draw some revenue in that wage gap. But the other good thing about that is now volunteers can focus on fundraising just for fire apparatus or maybe renovations to their facilities. It's just taking another obligation out. That's the other difficulty for volunteers anymore is one, there's a need to provide the service, but two, volunteer systems continue to struggle for funding. So there's a large demand on their members to put in hours at fundraising activities.
Mhm.
So there's just a cadre of issues that hurt the system. So we're going to do everything we can, county government, to continue to support the volunteer system, to assist them financially with personnel. All we can do. Continue to recruit and try to retain them beyond the, a 3-year period is usually as long as you will retain a young volunteer before they get a job, a career service job. But all in that time that we're trying to support and assist the volunteers, we will be working to build that framework gradually of being able to put more career personnel in the field, not only to supplement, but to complement the volunteers that we have, and we work together as a team.
And you're specifically addressing right now just EMS or fire service both?
EMS is 80% of the call volume in Carroll County, as it is in many departments. But what happens is, to me, it's short-sighted for the county government to only employ EMS only. What we're going to do is we're going to try to focus on dual certified fire and EMS as much as we can, but we also don't want to shorten our pool of available EMS personnel. So there may be some paramedic onlys that get that are hired over the course of 5 years, but we'll provide them a pathway for cross training as part of their career. I had the privilege of managing approximately 130 paramedics in Prince George's County. We went through this issue back in the late 90s where EMS was separate from fire. Well, from the EMS standpoint, it caused burnout. It caused a lack of upward mobility, just a separation of services. So what we did was we cross-trained, provide that opportunity for everyone to cross-train. 20 years into that project now, you see deputy chiefs and assistant chiefs that are now cross-trained in both fields. So it's provided a great deal of opportunity. Now, what I tell the volunteer chiefs is I'm going to be providing you cross-trained employees. You work with your resources that you have. As the chief, you have the ability to work with the resources you have. And if you only have 3, you can assign our personnel wherever you need them within your station. And the reason I say that is because there are going to be a majority of the time, career employees will probably be responding on EMS calls. But in the same sense, if you have EMS only volunteers that maybe only can come in for 4 hours a night, I don't want to detract from them being able to provide that service. So the volunteer chief would have the ability to take the county people and maybe put them on a fire truck and allow the volunteers to ride. But I'm also trying to keep everyone focused on the fact that with dual train certified, even EMS personnel have to operate in dangerous atmospheres. We run hazmat calls where you need to be able to protect yourself with SCBA. We run fire scenes where the smoke environment based on weather conditions could be all across the parking lot. So, but there are times when, as a fire department, and I'll use an example, Westminster, they have 2 people on their fire truck, but they also have 2 people on 2 different ambulances. But if the ambulances are free at the time a fire call comes in, the ambulance can meet the fire truck on the scene of the fire, and they carry their protective equipment with them. They're able now to assist on the fire call as well. So it's just better utilization of resources. So we're going to try to provide as many cross-trained as possible, but we're going to build a force for the volunteers to be able to utilize, as they see fit, and work them in with the resources they have.
Are there any paid stations, fully paid stations in the county at all? I thought that I understood that Westminster was a paid station, but that's volunteer also.
Well, they're all volunteer stations. And when they refer to paid stations in Carroll County right now, it's employees that the stations themselves hire. Right now, I am the employee of Carroll County Fire EMS department, myself as a operational member. And I have an administrative assistant that we just hired in December to help me put this together. what you're hearing as far as a paid station is Reese or Gamber. Yes, they are an all volunteer station, but the county provides them funding for them to hire EMS, EMTs, paramedics,
Okay.
drivers. So that's what we're trying to, when we talk about our plans, we try to use the same wording for each, that we consider those station employees right now, and what we're moving towards is hiring county employees.
Okay.
So we're going to have three separate, in the course of the 5 years, you're going to see county employees start being placed in stations to operate with volunteers, but you're still going to have stations that are going to have their own station employees until we're able to hire personnel for them. So that's where that 5-year plan comes in place. It would be nice. Right now, my plan is the need for 192 people to at least mirror the services that the county stations are employing themselves. But obviously, I'm not going to get 192 people over in 1 year.
Yeah.
So like I said, the county right now, they haven't agreed to it yet. We're in the budget process now. They're looking at a plan where they would hire 44 1 year, 40 the next year, and then 36 for the 3 subsequent years. And that would address the initial hiring. In the same sense, also too, the county owns the fire training center in Westminster. That is a facility that has always been ran by the CCVs of the Volunteer Association. They've done a fantastic job out there maintaining the facility and providing the training. But the other part of this plan is, as we hire personnel and the career force gets larger, we're going to have to be able to provide career development training for not only for volunteers, but for the career force that continues to expand. So in July of this year, through cooperation with CCVs, we are going to hire a training center manager as well as an EMS training coordinator for the training center, and try to do a dual approach of building the personnel, but also building the training plan.
Very good. Very
Yes.
good.
A lot of moving parts.
Boy, I'll say complicated moving parts as well.
Yes, it is.
You're dealing with an awful lot of different and distinct personalities that you're trying to
Yes.
explain circumstances and issues to, and get everyone to marshal behind the common cause. And that's a daunting task.
Yeah, the common calls, I'm trying to keep everybody focused on citizens come first. The calls, need to be covered in a professional manner, but also trying to take I have families here that have generations of history in the Carroll County Fire Service. Mm-hmm. And it's just making sure they understand this is not about erasing your history. This isn't about the county taking over your services. This is about working together to at least secure the services for the citizens for decades. It's just a natural progression that volunteerism will suffer, and that the need for increased career presence is going to happen. It's a natural progression. It's not just for Carroll County. It's happening nationwide. Mm-hmm. And it's been happening forever. I know I used to, in Pennsylvania, I used to go around and after we built the department in York, I would be asked to go all over the Commonwealth and speak about, efficiencies in the fire service. And I always used an example that in Pennsylvania, in 1977, there were over 300,000 volunteers, but in 2009, that number was less than 50,000. So that gives you an idea of the downward trend of just available time and available resources. So, I also, I understand the history part, and that's where the emotions come in. And in no way will this erase the names and the history of the individual volunteer companies. And basically what has happened is Gamber is still an independent volunteer corporation. But all 14 stations will now operate under the umbrella of the Carroll County Fire and EMS Department. It's not to take away their autonomy or their identity, but where we had 14 independent stations, we're now going to operate as one department from 14 stations. So that's where a lot of the change comes, and it'll take time, but I think everybody's pretty much marching in the same direction as far as the goal of service provision. It's just the details. We're down into the minute details now, and that's where the concerns come in. So we're going to work all those out.
Yep. Well, very good.
Yes.
Very good.
Skip,
George, yeah,
if I can just put a little bit
Absolutely.
in here.
sure.
Bob, I started in Prince George's County in 1953. I moved
part?
out, I moved out of the county before the paid system came into effect.
Yes,
But I moved to Howard County just ahead of the time when Howard County's doing the same thing
same thing.
as Carroll. It's a struggle. You think of things that you never thought of before,
Right.
but it does work.
It does work.
People that I've seen trained there have gone from rookie to fire chief of the county. You can do it, but it'll take a while, but it can happen.
It takes a while. It takes cooperation. It takes a little bit of understanding, everybody listening to each other. What part of Prince George's did you start at?
Would you believe I rode the first call to Chillimadelphi?
Chillimadelphi, 34 or 44?
34.
Well, it had to
There
be
was no
34 if it was the
44
first.
when I
Wasn't it
showed.
44 at the time? Absolutely. No,
And then
I worked
once
at 34 quite a bit.
once I moved, I spent the rest of that time until about almost 2000 with Howard County,
Yes.
and instituted a chaplain program there that has taken off and is
Outstanding.
spread. I
Yeah,
still
we'll make-
itch.
Yeah. It's never out of your system.
It never goes away.
We will get there. It's just baby steps. And like I said, we're not trying to force this to fix it within 1 year. It's going to take decades for a smooth transition, but hopefully we're going to fix a lot of the immediate issues. And that's just availability of personnel. But my goal is to keep the calls answered best we can.
Well, anything I can do to help you, let me know.
Yes, sir. I really appreciate that. It's good to
Hand in the pot.
absolutely. I have to send you a patch.
Okay.
I guess over the past year, I mean, it's been another challenge for everyone, of course, with COVID, but fundraising events for the fire departments, I would imagine, have been stymied a bit. They just couldn't have the carnivals, they couldn't get the gatherings, they couldn't have the food service events that they normally host and sanction so that they could get participants in for part of their fundraising events. I'm sure they took a rather substantial hit last year in just terms of their own funding operations.
That's correct. They did take a tremendous hit, but I applaud all 5 county commissioners and the county administrator. The funding that came in through the CARES Act funding, they were able to distribute almost $2 million to the volunteers to offset the losses. Hopefully, we're now really getting close. I think Gamber was usually the first station with the carnival each year, getting close to that. Hopefully, a lot of the restrictions will be lifted and they'll be able to fundraise this year. But they did a tremendous job also doing drive-through cooking, where you could purchase them,
Sure.
go through the drive-through. So on top of that, with the CARES funding, we were able to get, each station was able to get through the COVID. So hopefully we're at the end of the tunnel and we'll be able to get
That's great.
living here soon. So.
Yeah, those drive-through lines at Gamer, they were long.
Oh,
Long
absolutely.
many.
They had a wonderful carnival too, because when I first moved back to the area, I started hitting all the carnivals because I love to go there and try the different pit beefs at each one. And
Yeah, sure.
Reese, I got to say, Reese and Gamber both have great facilities as far as hosting a carnival.
They do, yeah. Both
Very
do.
entertaining. Very entertaining.
Very good. Winfield's another nice facility too.
Absolutely. They're all, I'll tell you, I try to tell everyone, being able to go through the budget, the county commissioners have been very good to the volunteer companies. The fundraising activities they do, they have invested well in themselves. We have some of the greatest apparatus, some of the nicest equipment, very nice facilities. So they've done well as a team between the commissioners, the county, and the volunteer efforts themselves. I mean, we have an outstanding fire service. Right now, we just need to work on the people part. you know, help being able to help each other and supplement.
Very good. Diane, Cindy, George, anybody have any other questions?
Can I ask a question? Employees you're planning to hire, are you looking to have them working just during daytime hours, business hours, or 24/7?
It's going to depend on what the volunteers request, but my plan was based on mirroring what they provide. So if they have 24-hour round the clock personnel, we would also provide 24-hour day coverage. From a planning perspective, it's just easier. Some of the stations may have had an employee for the first 10 hours and then had a 3-hour block skip, and then they would bring somebody else in for the later half. I just placed a 24-hour employee there. So once we get the department up and running, we start filling more stations in. We can look, we can continue to reevaluate the needs of each station, and if they need more personnel, that's always a request that they can put in. But a majority of the employees are going to be on a 24-hour basis.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, Bob, again, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate it. And I hope you'll allow us to extend an offer to have you come back at some time in the future.
I'd be more than happy to come back with hopefully a positive update and that we're well into the plan and providing that service. So
yeah, it's great. I mean, this is something that whether somebody recognizes it or not, it touches every citizen within the county for sure.
Absolutely.
At some point in time, they're going to find out that there's going to be a need for serious response. And whenever you need that, it's nice to know that it's there and at the service levels that I've always experienced in the county, at least. So that's
absolutely. That's our goal. Maintain the best fire department. Say again.
So thank you for taking care of all of us.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. That we just have great people here. So career and volunteer, we have great people, and that's what we're here to do, is provide the best service we can. So thank you.
You've got the right attitude for it. Coming into Howard County was a whole different perspective, and it was absolutely brand new to everybody.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of growing pains that you aren't going to have.
Well, yeah, we are experiencing some of them, and they will continue to grow. Everybody has a reason for either supporting or not supporting. My biggest thing that I have to remember, this isn't personal. This is people's lifelong history. This is their time investment. This is potentially their family's income. So what we need to do is just stay together as a team and just work together and fix, address all the concerns, but keep the citizen service as the primary objective. And we'll make it. We'll make it.
No, I'm sure you will. I'm
Yes,
sure
sir.
you will. It sounds like you're well positioned with your background and experience to take on this challenge. So
Hopefully so.
best of luck to you, Bob. If there's anything that we can do to support and help, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I don't know what that is. It's been a few years since I've had to tug on a fire hose, but
Right.
we have to.
Hey, I can vouch for,
I've done
I
that.
can,
I'm sure you have. I'm sure we all have. No, I definitely appreciate it. And believe me, you all are service from some of the best stations. You have great people.
Yeah, we completely agree.
Absolutely.
I can vouch for George. He's a good chaplain.
There you go.
I'll
I'm
vouch
sure
for
he
him.
is. I'm sure he is.
And I moved to Manchester to retire, and I live within almost walking distance of Manchester Fire Station, and they still use a house siren.
Oh yeah. I live in Tawny Town, and that thing will still blow every call.
Yeah.
And you know what happens to me when it happens.
You wanna go
You
run
start
it,
getting
right?
that itch, right?
Gets the old blood stirring.
Yes, it does. I mean, it never gets out of your system.
Ever.
I miss the days of riding fire trucks, but my body also tells me I rode fire trucks probably a little longer than I should have. So
Haven't we all?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I definitely appreciate the opportunity. I would love to come back and join you again whenever you extend that invitation and provide you updates.
Very good. Just for a little more background information, we are probably going to continue with these virtual presentations through June.
Okay.
And then we normally take July and August off other than our own board meetings, and then resume in September. We historically, we've always met at the library, the Finksburg Library,
Yes, sir.
for in-person meetings, which we all, I think, enjoy and embrace much more
Right.
so than what
Yeah.
we're doing here tonight,
I
but at
miss
least we
that.
have this as a way to
Right.
communicate. And so in September, we hope to be able to resume our in-person meetings at the library once again. So
Great.
we can
Yes.
actually get to meet in person sometime.
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay, again, thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
All right.
Ryan, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
Everybody
you.
have a great
Thanks.
night and thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Good night.
Good night.